All right, so what's going on, guys? So I'm going to do a couple of videos just outlining what is going on in terms of current events. So I'm going to give you guys some of the big picture. I'm going to give you guys some history. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of the Christian prophetic, and I'm also going to give you guys a little bit of what I believe is happening in the natural realm, and just give you an update on what God is doing in this time right now. And so one of the first things you got to realize is that I believe, and I've said this before, that we are in the midst of one of the greatest acts of God of our time, and especially with regards to what's happening in this battle of good versus evil. And so never in the history of man has there been such a advancement in society, such a large amount of people, the population, there's been such wealth, prosperity, there's been such power and influence over people of the land, of all these different things. And though it may not look like it was back in the Roman days, back in, any of these sort of militaristic type of, control that people have in the past. Right now, it looks very different because there's such an eye on instant information. People are smart, they're literate, and all these different things. So you can't just come in with a militaristic sort of rule over a group of people the way that it was a long time ago. And so right now, there is a war that I've talked about, which is an information war. It's a war for your mind, for your ideologies. People talk about color revolutions. People talk about just indoctrinating people and all these different things, right? And so this is the battlefront that we are living in. It is control over your mind, your thoughts, your perception of reality, your understanding of what's good and evil, and all these different things, right? And so I've talked about, and again, this is not going to hit some people well. It's going to hit people differently. And I know even on this channel, I have a mixed bag of different people. And I'm going to talk about that here in a second. But right now, we're in a time where if you do any amount of research, whether you think it's a conspiracy, whether you don't think it's anything at all, whether there's legitimacy behind some of the movements going on, there's definitely a lot of information and people doing the research to support certain allegations, claims, through evidence, whatever it is. And so one of the big things is the Great Reset, right? The Great Reset, talking about the financial systems, taking control over, people, what they own, the monetary fiscal policy, and the control people have over governments, many, many things. I'm not here to talk about that here in this video, but any amount of research shows that people are aware of it, they're waking up to it. Maybe they don't fully understand what's going on, but there is a concerted effort. And this is what I'm talking about with regards to this battle of good versus evil. And so we're living in a time for which it is some of the most epically divided that we've ever had. So the common people, maybe you can call them, maybe the poor, the middle class, or whatever, the common people versus the rich people. You can call them the ones that are doing good and are standing for biblical values, righteousness, versus those that are satanic. Maybe they utterly worship demons and Satan and things like that. Whatever it is, there's different groups, and people, through their limited understanding and perception of the world, they stereotype things to be able to better understand it. And so you have this problem of grouping and stereotyping people based on, the side that they're on and all that. But the fact is, there's a huge war going on. And again, I can't even in this short video tell you the gravity, the depths to which this is such an epic thing going on right now. And so the bottom line I'm saying for this point is that we are in the midst of one of the greatest battles ever to be, and I've said this frequently, but that's going to be won by the good side. And then that is going to usher in a sort of kingdom age is what I've called it. So just a lot of revival, a lot of prosperity, a lot of people coming to Christ, and then things being restored, because the idols of our time, the statues of Baal, if you want to give any reference to the Old Testament, of these ups and downs that the Israelites had whenever they destroyed and tore down their statues of Baal, their astral poles and all that stuff. And so we're in this time where once we get rid of that, we remove the evil power, then we're going to usher in a great time, right? And so we're in the midst of that. And so for me, this channel, I've been called, right? I've just said this before. I've been called to prepare temporarily in this season the remnant and the people that have like-mindedness, and to encourage people to step up and to encourage other people that are not awake necessarily to get a foundation in Christ, to get a foundation in terms of your discernment, your spiritual understanding, perceive it from that way, and then go and do your research, go pray about it, go commune with the Lord, and find out what is actually going on with regards to the financial systems, with regards to COVID, with regards to agendas, with regards to communism, with regards to the depths of the Republican and Democratic parties in the US, if you live here, and many other issues, right? So what is right? So go find out for yourself. Is it biblical about abortion? Is it biblical for LGBTQ? Is it biblical for any number of issues that are going on? So set your foundation, because for so long we've had Christians in different camps. Oh, I'm just gonna not worry about things, these hot topics in the world about social justice and politics and medicine and all this stuff. But I'm just going to worry on the church and evangelism and Jesus Christ and, my character and these different things. And so there's nothing bad about that. But because of this area for which there's this line, how do we cross over as Christians into all these other realms? This is what God is doing to wake people up. So point being that, though I have a minor influence on the listeners, I've had, and I'll talk about this in a future video, but I have had a specific role in trying to wake up the church. And so, though it doesn't make sense, the influence I had early versus now versus in the future, but God is also preparing me for some big things as things pass, especially the prophetic words and many other things, once God's victory is, and he's already victorious, but once that is shown more in the natural. And so what's going on basically is that there's basically multiple camps. You have the Christian camp, whether you are in the prophetic, whether you are just a Christian looking at the world, perceiving it and thinking, man, there's something off about this world. There's people that are in the, you could even argue, it's the conspiracy or the speculative, the Q even, and all these different things for which they're trying to get information. They may or may not necessarily be Christian, but they're trying to get information as best as possible based on what is being shown in these other realms, right? So alternative media, websites, the drops, and all this stuff. And then there's another group that are trying to analyze really what is going on in the news. So basically executive orders, this banter in the media, what Trump is saying, what Biden is saying, what many people are saying. And these are the guys that are like the Patel Patriots of the world. I've talked about the theory of devolution, many of these guys, right? So regardless of what camp they're in, we're all trying to figure out the same thing, which is the truth. What is going on in the world? I don't want to be asleep and be ignorant to what's going on. Like, is this COVID, some, man-made thing in the Wuhan lab that's trying to control and manipulate and have population control and all these different crazy things, right? I don't want to be asleep, right, to what's going on. And I want to really know, I want to get to the bottom of, is there some kind of a financial reset? Is there some kind of a hold on people and with the IMF and the Federal Reserve banks and all these different things? Like, is there something going on or not? And people are trying to figure this out, right? And so I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit, but there's different camps and different groups. There's even surveys, right? And you got to wonder, why is it that this Monmouth College survey and many other surveys still say that even till now, 1 in 6 Americans believe that there is a path for Trump to be reinstated, despite quote unquote people saying that there's no election fraud or whatever it is, right? So why is it that people are believing? And again, my influence is very small. I have a small subset. If I went viral at some point, millions, a couple million maybe at most. But why is it that 1 in 6 Americans, and also across the world, right, millions and millions and millions of people still have this view that there is something going on, that there was fraud, that there's a bigger battle going on, and this marginalizing of all these radical, right guys and these Q guys and these, weird Trump guys and all this stuff. Why is it that this battle is so thick? I'm not just one dude with, a few thousand, 100,000, 10,000, whatever people that is, trying to get people rallied up around like Trump and all this other stuff and exposure. there are millions and millions and millions of people in different groups, different camps, doing the same thing, for which they are asking questions of, man, what is really going on behind the scenes? Is there something beyond what the news is saying, what the press release is saying, what the interviews are happening, and what Trump's rallies are saying, like all these different things? There's something going on. They're trying to figure it out, whether it's some kind of a decode, a cryptic message, whether it's something else going on. What is really going on? Because I'm confused on what is being said at the surface level, and then the actions being taken. Why is it that people are so adamant and so gung-ho about of labeling these people, conspiracy theorists and misinformation and all this stuff? There's this fog of war, people yelling across the aisle, people yelling and saying, no, those guys are wrong, and no, there's no evidence of this and that, and there's a lot of this going on. And you have to wonder, you literally have to sit down and say, forget about the Christian view, forget about politics, the Republican versus Democrat, forget about prophecy, and forget about, Q, forget about, devolution and these theories. Why is it that people are so gung-ho about the fact that there's something else going on behind the scenes? Well, it's because God is riling people up. He's waking people up, and he's doing something so that people can really see the gravity of what exists in the world. People have been so asleep. They've been so much in slumber, especially the church. They've been sleeping for such a long time that they have to be shaken awake slowly but surely. Things need to be thrown at them. If everything is uncovered at once, people don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to receive the information. They don't know how to take it and digest it and move forward so that there's gratitude, right? Israelites, 40 years in the desert, right? Going through, they couldn't understand the gravity of what happened in Egypt, the deliverance, and then going into this promised land. Caleb and Joshua conquering, doing all these different things, right? Of warring and fighting. The amount of deliverance that the Israelites had and how God was on their side, that buildup took so long, and it was so evident. And when it's written and recorded in the Bible, you can't help but to look back and say, wow, God was working there. And he was really doing something to deliver and to present and prepare people for the future and the promises that he has. And so the same thing is going on right now. So many people have been praying. God is wanting to usher in this new kingdom age, this new area for which there's great revival. And again, it's not about the people. It's not about Trump. It's not about, all these movements. Oh, I'm right. Oh, Q was right. Oh, this was right, or whatever. It is the fact that God wants to get the glory. He wants to tear down the idols. He wants to remove the influence that is the demonic forces, and he wants to usher in this next period of the future. And so that's why I don't look so narrowly at just Trump. I don't look so narrowly just at the Republicans and Democrats. There's something bigger that's happening in the future, and people don't understand the gravity of what's going on because they're not awake. And many of you guys even listening, and many Christians at that, they're at different levels. They're at different levels of maturity. Some people still have to chew on, the baby milk stuff about Christ and his salvation in your life. Some people have to wrestle with certain sins like depression, anxiety, fear, self-control, many things, right? And other people have to just go through a season of life of healing, of going through a difficulty, a relational issue, whatever it is. And so people are kind of grasping at different parts of your walk in Christ. But for other people, you're also looking at the world and perceiving outside of yourself and of your local body. And you're seeing it and saying, man, there's something else going on. God is doing something, and he's preparing everybody, each their own. Individually, people have a story, but everything converges. Everything is converging. And so even on this channel, guys, as much as if you've been listening to me, I haven't been saying anything outside that is heretical in the sense of the basic gospel message, what I teach or preach or whatever you want to call it in terms of the deity of Christ, the saving knowledge of Jesus, and many of the other things that are very common in the church. But what I'm adding and what I've been called to do is to give people encouragement and pushing people in terms of preparing you for what's coming, and especially into the ushering of this next kingdom age. And so he's raising up a bunch of people. And I know a lot of you guys, my target audience, if you want to call it, I know a lot of you are listening You may not comment. You may not, be as expressive as maybe the trolls and some of the other guys. But I know many of you are on that page of, man, I'm just trying to see and get an idea of what's coming in the future. I know God is preparing me. He's waking me up. I'm looking at and perceiving the world. I'm understanding that something else is going on, and he's awakening me. And that's why he's isolating me. He's giving me, this time where I have to even be confrontational with my family, with my local body. He's removing me from bad churches, from bad communities, people that have been succumbing and bowing down to the agendas of the world and of the government and all these different things, as opposed to waking up and seeing COVID for what it is, seeing the propaganda and all these different things for what it is, looking past the media and what they're saying and seeing it for what it is, doing some due diligence and research about the possibility and the evidence of fraud and what's going on with the Great Reset, what's going on with this financial battle, what's going on with the political realm, reading between what Trump is saying, reading between what Biden is saying, reading between all these things, getting to the next layer and saying, man, there is definitely a war going on, a power struggle for the next generation of minds, this current battle of truth getting and winning people over to a certain, I don't want to say side, but a certain viewpoint. And ultimately, if you are, whatever group you're in, whether you're in the prophetic Christian group, whether you're in the conservative Christian group and you don't, maybe don't necessarily see the prophetic, whether you are in some other alternative news group, whether you are in this, let's read, find out in between the lines of evidence-based, executive orders and proclamations and, speeches and all this stuff, if you're there, or if you're in this, Q camp, if you're in this other, trying to find out based on these posts and things like that, whatever group you're in, people are trying to find out the truth. And because there's such a thick fog of war going on, it's hard for people to see beyond the rumors that are being portrayed. Like, oh yeah, those prophetic guys, they're false prophets. Oh yeah, those Q guys, they are weird QAnon guys. Like, they're just whack conspiracy guys. The ultra right wing, blah, blah, blah. And so it's hard for people to discern past that to look and find out the truth. And so if you are beyond that, this message is to encourage you to say that not only is this going on, but there's more that God is doing beyond restoring Trump, beyond showcasing the evil and all these different things. There's a bigger war going on for which God is paving the way and clearing the path to what is going to be the future. And the more I pray into it, the more time that passes, the more peace I have of that future, right? So later in a future video, maybe tomorrow or the next day, I'm going to talk about the prophetic, where we are, piecing the things together, and then looking at it from the natural perspective. Because right now, I believe that very soon there's going to be a lot of things, and I have to talk. I will talk tomorrow about the path that is likely to take, and so stay tuned for that, right? But everybody has a piece. Prophetic people, they have a piece. The people researching in the natural, they have a piece. Everybody has a piece, but God is using all of it to wake people up, to get people to figure out and anchor themselves, not only in Christ, but in the truth. And together, God is using all of this to pave the way for the future. And that future is bright, guys. So don't let someone tell you that, oh, nope, Christ is coming next year. Yep, it's over. The world is done. I'm telling you right now, and people are going to give me a lot of flack for this, but we are in the midst of one of the greatest battles of our time. After the Christ resurrection and all of that, even after that, I would even argue between all of that, with everything going on with the Crusades and so many things during that last couple thousand years, this battle right now is one of the greatest battles. And people don't see it. People don't understand the influence that the papacy has, the global elites. They have some names, the Soroses of the world, the Rockefellers, and whatever it is, right? All these different names of whoever is behind the scenes with all this money, all this influence. And you can't help but think that if you have that much money, you would want to, at least in some way, play God and act like you're God, because you have that much wealth, that much power. And for you to want to seep into a country, for you to want to implement and execute the Great Reset agenda of taking over monetary and fiscal policy of a nation, of trying to get this movement towards the one world government. And again, that's prophetic too. In the Bible, it talks about that the Antichrist will have keys to the world. So this movement, right, is a demonic movement in the sense of centralizing so that the wrong people, they will get power and then they will be given the keys of the world for a time. But that's going to be way later. And I've talked about that in previous videos, especially in my 7-part series, right? So I'm saying all that to encourage you. And I'm going to do some follow-up videos about of this. But right now, we're in the middle of the greatest move, one of the greatest moves of God of our time, preparing people for what's to come. And it's paving the way for a great revival, paving the way for some saints, the remnant, to stand up and to say, I've had enough of tyranny. I've had enough of evil. I've had enough of this control. I want to wake up. I'm not just limited to church within my 4 walls and just doing some ministry and just doing a couple of things. I want to fight in all these different areas of life, in your family, in society, in your workplace, in politics, in governments, and many other aspects, right? There's many areas that God is calling us to do, but we've been so limited. So now's the time. Now's the time for action. Now's the time to stand up. Now's the time to wake up and realize what God is doing to give him that glory. And so this is, if anything, an encouraging message. It's a way to reiterate what's been going on, what God's calling me to do, especially in this time. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the path and what is going to happen in some future videos, especially tomorrow, guys. So stay tuned. It's a good time. Love you guys, and I'll talk to you guys very soon.